path no one actually walks. The spiral frame. Most people think meditation is the path. Buddha would say it's 1/3 of it. If you've read a book about Buddhism in the last 50 years, or downloaded a mindfulness app, or heard a podcast on stress and presence, there's a good chance you came away with an impression. The impression is this: the heart of Buddhist practice is a particular state of mind you cultivate by sitting still and watching your breath. It's not wrong. It's 1/3 of the answer. The Buddha taught a path with 8 factors. You may have heard it called the Noble Eightfold Path. You may have seen it listed in a book somewhere. Right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration. 8 words, usually 8 bullet points, sometimes a wheel with 8 spokes on a meditation cushion. Here's what the bullet points don't show you. 2 of the most serious living Theravada scholars in the English-speaking world, Bhikkhu Bodhi, who's translated more of the Buddha's discourses into English than almost anyone alive, and Thanissaro Bhikkhu, who spent 50 years inside the Thai forest tradition, have both said in print that what reached the West is roughly 1 cluster, 1/3, the part about attention and the breath. The rest of the path, what the Buddha actually taught about how you speak, how you act, how you make your living, what you understand, and what you intend, has been largely left behind. This is not a scolding video. If mindfulness helped you, it helped you. That's real. What it is a restoration. Tonight we're going to put the other 2/3 back on the table and see what the full shape actually looks like. There's a simile in one of the discourses, Anguttara Nikaya, Book of Tens, Sutta 121, AN 10.121. The Buddha says, the dawn is the forerunner and precursor of the sunrise. The dawn isn't a separate event that happens before the sun comes up. The dawn is the sun coming up in its first phase, one arising. Different moments of the same light. The Eightfold Path is like that. It's not a staircase. You don't master factor 1, then graduate to factor 2, then earn factor 3. That's not how the Buddha described it, and it's not how the suttas lay it out when you read them carefully. The 8 factors are phases of one arising. They support each other. They refine each other. They circle back on each other. Thanissaro Bhikkhu calls this an upward spiral. That phrase, spiral, is his interpretive gloss, not the Buddha's word. What the canonical text actually says in Majjhima Nikaya 117 M. N. 117 is that certain factors run and circle around the others. Same image, same point. The path doubles back on itself as it rises. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to walk you through the 8 factors in 3 clusters. The way a female arahant named Dhammadinna organized them in a discourse the Buddha himself endorsed. We'll start with the cluster you already know. Then we'll look at the cluster that was removed. Then we'll look at the cluster that was always underneath the whole thing. By the end, if this works, you'll see what the Eightfold Path actually is. Not 8 things to master before you're ready. One practice with 8 aspects, and you're already walking it. The only question is how fully. Act 1. Samādhi. Meet viewer where they are. Let's start where you probably already are. The cluster the West inherited. In canonical terms, this is called Samādhi, often translated concentration, but really closer to collectedness or unification of mind. 3 of the 8 factors live here: right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration. If meditation is what you associate with Buddhism, sitting quietly, watching the breath, noticing thoughts. You're in this cluster. That's the ground we're going to cover first. Before we go further, one thing worth saying clearly. If mindfulness has helped you, that's real. We're not going to argue it away. What we're going to do is put it back into its canonical setting and see what it looked like before it crossed the ocean. Because the setting changes what the thing is for. We'll take the three factors in the order the suttas give them. Effort, then mindfulness, then concentration. Right effort, samavayama, is the engine. In Samyutta Nikaya 45, Sutta 8, SN 45.8, the Buddha defines it as 4 exertions. You work to prevent unskillful mental states from arising. You work to abandon those that have arisen. You work to arouse skillful states. You work to maintain the ones you've already cultivated. 4 moves. Prevent, abandon, arouse, maintain. Here's what that looks like on a Tuesday afternoon. It's 4 o'clock. You're at your kitchen counter making tea, and without warning an old memory surfaces. Someone said something to you 15 years ago that still stings. The resentment flares up like it's fresh. For a moment, you're right back there. Right effort doesn't ask you to push the memory away. It doesn't ask you to pretend it didn't hurt. It asks you to notice what's arising, the grudge, the imagined rebuttal, the small hot feeling in the chest, and to not feed it, to let the skillful quality you were cultivating a minute ago, which was just making tea, reassert itself. Abandon what's arisen. Maintain what was already there. That's right effort, not spiritual bootstrapping, not trying harder at being calm. 4 specific moves applied to a specific mental event in a specific moment. You've probably done versions of this hundreds of times without having a name for it. Now, here's the thing about right effort. It doesn't work by itself. You can't abandon what you can't see. So you need the next factor. You need something that tells you what's actually arising in real time, clearly enough to respond. That's where mindfulness comes in. Right mindfulness. Samasati. This is the one that made it across the ocean. This is the one you've heard about. And this is the one where the translation went sideways. In modern English, mindfulness usually means something like present moment awareness or non-judgmental attention. Bare attention, noticing without reacting. That's the sense that runs through most mindfulness books, most apps, most 8-week stress reduction programs. Thanissaro Bhikkhu has spent a long time pointing out that this is not what sati means in the suttas. Sati in Pali, the word we now translate as mindfulness, comes from a root that means to remember. In canonical usage, it means active memory, holding something in mind while you act, keeping the teaching present while the moment unfolds. That's a different faculty than bare attention. Bare attention notices the breath. Sati notices the breath and remembers why noticing the breath matters. It holds the frame while doing the thing. The Buddha gave sati its fullest treatment in a discourse called the Satipatthana Sutta, Majjhima Nikaya 10, MN 10. He describes 4 establishings of mindfulness, 4 places you plant the faculty. The first is the body, breath, posture, movement, the parts and elements of the body, including, and this is the part the apps leave out, the 9 charnel-ground contemplations, 9 stages of a corpse's decomposition, swelling, discoloration, reduction to bones, reduction to dust. In the canonical text, the Buddha tells monks, go to a charnel-ground, look at a corpse one day dead, bloated and discolored, and contemplate that your own body is of that nature, will become that, has not escaped that. This is what right mindfulness canonically includes. Not just noticing your breath, noticing this. We did a full video on death contemplation, marana sati, separately. What matters here? Death awareness isn't a separate Buddhist practice. It's inside the core of right mindfulness. The second establishing is feelings, not emotions, but feeling tones. Pleasant, unpleasant, neutral. Every experience has one. Sati notices which. The third is mind, the overall quality of the mental state right now. Is there greed in it? Aversion, delusion? Is it contracted, expansive, concentrated, scattered? The fourth is mental qualities. And this one is the widest. 5 lists of them: the hindrances, the aggregates, the sense bases, the factors of awakening, and the 4 noble truths themselves. Sati applied to the teaching, remembering the map while moving through the territory. 4 establishings: body, feelings, mind, and the teaching itself held in mind as you move. Now look at that list and compare it to what most mindfulness training in the West actually asks you to do. You'll notice the West took the first establishing, the body, breath, posture, and most of the second, the pleasant, unpleasant tone of sensations. Very little of the third, almost none of the fourth, and absolutely none of the charnel-ground. That's what Bhikkhu Bodhi is pointing at when he writes, and I'm paraphrasing, that right mindfulness, in the canonical sense, must be guided by right view, steered by right intention, grounded in the 3 ethical factors, and cultivated in conjunction with right effort. Without those, you have a subset, a useful subset, but a subset. He puts it more bluntly in one place. He says, a sniper can be mindful. Let that sit for a second. A sniper can be present moment aware. A sniper has to be. Total attention to the breath, total attention to the body, total attention to the target. Every capacity mindfulness apps train, a skilled sniper already has. And a skilled sniper is about to kill someone. Bodhi's point isn't that mindfulness is bad. His point is that mindfulness isolated from the other factors of the path isn't the path. It's a faculty, and faculties can be turned in any direction. Right mindfulness is the faculty turned toward the ending of suffering, yours and everyone else's. Turn some other direction, it's still mindfulness. It's just not the Buddha's. This is why the MBSR critique matters, and also why it has to be fair. Jon Kabat-Zinn, who founded mindfulness-based stress reduction in 1979, took sati and stripped it of most of its canonical framing to make it accessible to hospital patients in secular settings. That choice helped millions of people. It isn't wrong, it's partial. In recent years, Kabat-Zinn himself has walked back some of the earlier ethics-neutral framing. The critique landed, and he adjusted. What reached most Western practitioners is a useful subset. Not a wrong subset, a subset. If the full path is a house, MBSR is a very good roof. You can shelter under it for a while. You just can't live in it without the walls and the floor. Here's your Tuesday moment for this factor. 5:15 in the afternoon. You're on a walk around the neighborhood. The breath goes in and out, and you feel it. The knees feel their age, and you feel that. A neighbor nods as you pass. You nod back, and you notice the small warmth of the exchange. Feeling tone, pleasant, barely registered. 2 blocks later, a thought surfaces about tomorrow's appointment. You notice the thought is tightening the jaw. You notice the tightening. The jaw loosens on its own, 3 of the 4 satipathanas in the space of 10 minutes without ever sitting down. That's sati in canonical form, not emptied of content. Turn toward what's actually happening, including the small things, including the body that will not last. The third factor in this cluster is right concentration. Samādhi, And in SN 45.8, the Buddha gives it a definition that most modern presentations quietly soften. He defines it as the 4 jhanas. SN 45.8. The jhanas are deep meditative absorptions. They have specific canonical markers: rapture and pleasure born of seclusion in the first, mental unification and inner stillness in the second, equanimity and clear awareness in the third, pure equanimity and mindfulness without pleasure or pain in the fourth. The Buddha was very specific. He names them by number and describes what each feels like. He did not say right concentration is being centered. He did not say it's finding your focus. He said it's the 4 jhanas. That's a categorical difference from the kind of meditation most people do. And it matters to be honest about it. Thanissaro Bhikkhu has written carefully about this. He points out that the canonical jhanas have 2 impostors, states that look like concentration but aren't. One is Mahasamadhi, a dull, dreamy, semi-aware state where the mind has gone quiet because it's gone numb. The other is Asanyibhava, a blank, perceptionless state where there's no content at all. Both feel peaceful. Neither is right concentration. Right concentration is alert, clear, unified, and fully aware. This creates a real question for the lay practitioner. If right concentration is the 4 jhanas, and you're not reaching the jhanas in your 20 minutes on the recliner after dinner, is your practice right concentration or not? Here's the honest answer. It's the slope, not the summit. Your Tuesday practice, 8:30 in the evening, 20 minutes of sitting. That probably isn't jhana. Jhana takes sustained conditions most lay lives don't support. What that 20 minutes is, if it's done with the other 7 factors in the frame, is cultivation of the slope that leads toward jhana. Less scatter, more collectedness, the ground preparing itself. That's not a small thing. It's just not the summit. And saying so isn't a discouragement. It's the kind of honesty the Buddha himself modeled. He distinguished carefully. So should we. So here's where we are. Right effort, the engine. Right mindfulness, the faculty. Canonically far larger than the version you've met. Right concentration, the unification. Canonically defined as jhana, which your practice is growing toward even if it hasn't arrived. 3 factors, 1 cluster, samadhi. And this cluster, these 3, is very nearly all of what the Western mindfulness tradition inherited. The other 5 factors, the other 2 clusters, were mostly left at the dock, which raises a question Bhikkhu Bodhi has been pointing at for 30 years. If this cluster is so powerful, why did the Buddha put it in the middle of the list, with 3 factors on one side of it and 2 on the other? Why didn't he just teach this? The answer is the rest of the path, and the rest of the path turns out to be the ground this cluster grows from. We're going there next. Exit to Sīla, the ground that was removed. Bhikkhu Bodhi has been asking a version of this question for decades. If the mindfulness cluster is so powerful, and it is, why did the Buddha surround it with ethics? Why did he put 3 factors of conduct right in the middle of the path? His answer, as far as I can read him, because mindfulness without ethics isn't the path. It's a faculty, and faculties amplify whatever they're pointed at. Remember the sniper. A sniper can be mindful. A sniper has to be. That's not a failure of mindfulness. That's mindfulness doing exactly what mindfulness does, sharpening whatever is already in the hand. So the Buddha didn't teach mindfulness alone. He taught mindfulness embedded. 3 factors on one side of it: right speech, right action, right livelihood, that govern what you do with the sharpened faculty. 2 factors on the other side that we'll get to in a moment. All of it together is the path. Ethics isn't optional equipment. It's the ground the whole thing grows from. This cluster is called Sīla. 3 factors: speech, action, livelihood. What you say, what you do, and how you make your living. Now, a note before we go in. These 3 factors have a reputation problem in modern culture. When people hear Buddhist ethics, they often imagine rules, a list of thou shalt nots, Victorian moralism with incense. I want to dismantle that impression as we go. Sila, in canonical usage, isn't a moral scorecard you pass or fail. It's a way of aligning what you do with what you're trying to become. We'll see why at the end of the act. Let's take the 3 factors in order. Right speech, Samādhi, is the first, and in SN 45.8, the Buddha defines it with 4 specific abstentions. SN 45.8. No lying, no divisive speech, speech designed to break people apart, no harsh speech, speech designed to wound, and no idle chatter, speech that fills space without purpose. 4 aspects, not 1. Notice what that list actually says. The first 2 are about truth and trust. The second 2 are about effect. You could tell the literal truth in a way that shatters a relationship. You could use no false words at all and still fill every conversation with noise. Right speech asks you to be accurate and to be accountable for what the accuracy does. Here's the Tuesday moment. 11 in the morning, your daughter calls. She's frustrated about something her teenager did. The same thing you handled with her 25 years ago, when she was the teenager. You could tell her that. It would be true. It would also be a small weapon, delivered wrapped in nostalgia. You choose not to. You listen instead. You say something that's true and also useful, something that helps her see the situation more clearly, without relocating it back to her own adolescence. That's 4 aspects of right speech happening in a 30-second choice. Not lying, not dividing her from her own authority, not harsh, not idle. You didn't consult a list. You listened first. This is what Sīla is when it's working, not a rule book. A quality of attention shaped by right view and right intention. The 2 factors we haven't gotten to yet, applied to the mouth. Right action, Samādhi, is the second factor of this cluster. And here I need to flag something, because the canonical text and the lay application diverge. In SN 45.8, the Buddha is speaking primarily to monks. He defines right action as abstaining from 3 things: taking life, taking what is not given, and sexual intercourse. The Pali word is a brahmacharya, which for monastics means full celibacy. For the lay audience, the Buddha gave a different formulation in other discourses. Majjhima Nikaya 141, MN 141, Dikha Nikaya 22, DN 22, and others. The first 2 abstentions are the same: no killing, no stealing. The third shifts from no sexual activity to no sexual misconduct. That's the formulation that applies to householders. That's the one relevant to most of you watching. This isn't a softening, it's a different audience. The monastic version is stricter because monastic life is designed for a different purpose. The lay version addresses what lay life actually contains. So for most of us, right action means 3 abstentions: no killing, no stealing, no sexual misconduct, meaning conduct that betrays trust, exploits power, or causes harm. Tuesday, 1:30 in the afternoon. You're in the grocery store parking lot, coming back to your car. You notice a spider on the door handle. It's a small spider. 30 seconds of attention and a folded receipt later, the spider is on the grass by the cart return. and you're in the car driving home. That's right action, not a ritual, not a purity performance. A small choice made in 60 seconds that aligned what you did with what you were trying to become. You became someone who, at 1:30 on a Tuesday, takes 30 seconds to not kill a spider. That's a different person than the one who doesn't. The canonical teaching is that every one of those choices, thousands of them, over a life, is you shaping you. Karma, in the original sense, doesn't mean cosmic punishment. It means action that leaves a residue in the actor. What you do trains what you become. The third factor of this cluster is right livelihood, sama ajiva, and this one is almost entirely missing from the Western conversation about mindfulness. In SN 45.8, the Buddha defines right livelihood briefly. Having abandoned dishonest livelihood, one keeps one's life going with a right livelihood. In Anguttara Nikaya 5, Sutta 177, AN 5.177, he fills in what that means for lay people. He names 5 kinds of trade a lay follower should not engage in. Trade in weapons, trade in living beings, people, or animals destined for harm, trade in meat, trade in intoxicants, trade in poison. That's the canonical list. It's short, and it has a clear logic. These are forms of livelihood that require you to actively participate in someone else's harm. Now, most of you watching aren't choosing your career anymore. Many of you are retired. So does right livelihood still apply? It does. But here we need to be careful, because what I'm about to say is a modern application of canonical logic, not a canonical category. The Buddha also taught, in Anguttara Nikaya 4 Sutta 61, AN 4.61, about the right uses of wealth for a householder who has already earned it. Support for yourself and your family, sharing with friends, protection against the misfortunes of life, and what he called the 5 oblations, including support for teachers and those who walk the path seriously. If you take those 2 suttas together, AN 5.177 on how you earn, and AN 4.61 on how you use what you earned, a principle emerges that extends naturally into retirement. Right livelihood for the retired isn't about the paycheck you no longer receive. It's about what your money is still doing while you're not earning it. Where is your money invested? Is it in the 5 trades? Your mutual fund probably holds something you'd prefer it didn't. What does your time make possible? Who are you supporting? The canonical factor is about the economic flow you participate in. Retirement doesn't end that flow. It just changes your position inside it. Tuesday, 2:45 in the afternoon. You're at the kitchen table paying bills. You notice, for the first time in a while, where the statements are actually coming from. A brokerage, a utility, a charity, a card you haven't used in 6 months. 20 minutes later, your neighbor across the street, whose husband died last year, calls to ask if you can help her figure out a form. You say yes. You walk over after dinner. 2 beats of the same factor. The financial flow and the human one. That's right livelihood in retirement. Modern application, same canonical logic. Now, before we leave this cluster, I want to come back to the word I promised to come back to. Samma. We've been translating it, this whole video, as right, right view, right speech, right action. And I understand why right got chosen. It's short, it rhymes, it fits on a wheel, but it drags a lot of baggage with it. Right, in modern English, sounds moralistic. It sounds like there's a wrong that makes you guilty. It sounds, frankly, a little Victorian. Sama in Pali carries a different feel. It comes from a root that means together, complete, aligned. Think of an arrow aimed true at a target. Think of a bone set properly. Think of a chord played in tune. Sama isn't the opposite of wrong. It's closer to the opposite of askew. A crooked thing, straightened. A scattered thing, aimed. Aim true isn't a direct etymological translation. I want to label that clearly. It's an evocation, but it's closer to the feel of the word than right is, which changes what this whole path is asking of you. You're not failing right speech when a harsh word slips out. You're walking a path that includes the harsh word and the noticing of it, and the choice about what comes next. You're not failing right action when you make a hard call in an ambiguous situation. You're walking it imperfectly, like every single person who's ever tried to walk it. Sīla isn't a ledger, it's a tuning. You're the instrument, and the factors are how you get back in tune when you drift. So here's Act 2. The ground that was removed, right speech, right action, right livelihood. 3 of the 8 factors. Together they're called sila, often translated virtue or morality or ethics, but really closer to aligned conduct. They're the ground the mindfulness cluster grows from. Without them, mindfulness is a sniper's faculty. With them, it's a path. And yet, this still isn't the whole shape. There are 2 factors left. 2 factors that aren't about what you do with the sharpened faculty, and aren't about what you do with your body and speech and livelihood. They're about what you see, and about what you want. And they were listed first in the canonical order for a reason, to understand why we need to meet the woman who taught the Buddha's path to her former husband so clearly that the Buddha himself said he couldn't have said it better. We go there next. Akti 3 Paññā, the frame that was always there. Somewhere around 500 BCE, a woman named Dhammadinna was once married to a wealthy merchant in the city of Rajagaha. Her husband, Visakha, became a follower of the Buddha, and after his own awakening, he offered her a choice. She could keep the household and the wealth, or she could leave freely with his blessing. She chose to leave. She ordained. And not long after, the canonical texts tell us, she became an arahant, a fully awakened one. Sometime later, Visakha came to visit her, not as her husband anymore, as a lay follower coming to question the nun about the Dhamma. What followed is recorded in Majjhima Nikaya 44, N 44. It's a long exchange. He asks her one question after another about the teaching, and she answers each one with a clarity and precision that, by the end, leaves him stunned. Visakha goes to the Buddha. He reports the conversation, every question, every answer. The Buddha listens. Then he says something that in the whole canon is rare. He says, Dhammadinna is wise. Dhammadinna is of great wisdom. If you had asked me the same questions, I would have answered you in the same way she did. That's the endorsement, full endorsement. The Buddha saying, her understanding and mine are the same understanding. So what did she teach? Among other things, she taught Visakha how the Eightfold Path is actually organized. She told him the 8 factors fall into 3 clusters. The 3 factors we just covered, right speech, right action, right livelihood. These, she said, belong to sila, the aggregate of virtue, the 3 factors we covered before that, right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration. These belong to samadhi, the aggregate of concentration, and the remaining 2 factors, right view and right intention. These belong to paññā, the aggregate of discernment, 3 clusters, not 8 rungs, 3 aggregates, the word she used, which suggests something more like mutually supporting dimensions than sequential steps. This is the structure that gets lost when you see the path laid out as a numbered list. 8 bullet points hide the architecture. Dhammadinna showed the architecture, and the Buddha confirmed it. Now here's the question that opens this act. If right view and right intention belong to Paññā, wisdom, discernment, and wisdom is usually what you're trying to arrive at on a spiritual path, why are these two factors listed first in the canonical order? Right view is factor 1. Right intention is factor 2. Wisdom is the starting line, not the finish. How can that be right? Bhikkhu Bodhi spent a career on this question, and his resolution is elegant. He says the tradition distinguishes between 2 levels of wisdom on the path. There is preliminary wisdom, the kind you need just to begin walking, and there is mature wisdom, the kind the walking produces. At the start of the path, you need enough wisdom to know that the path exists and that it's worth walking and roughly where it leads. You need the map, not a perfect map, just enough of a map to take the first step. Then you start walking. The walking refines the other factors: speech, action, livelihood, effort, mindfulness, concentration. And as those factors refine each other, they also refine your understanding. The map updates as you walk. The preliminary wisdom at the start becomes something very different by the end. Right view at factor 1 is the compass. Right view at the summit is the territory itself. Seen directly, same factor. 2 levels. That's how it can be listed first without being claimed first. Let's look at what the canonical text actually says. Right view is, because this is the pedagogical cliff of the whole video, and I want to walk it carefully. In Majjhima Nikaya 117 M.N. 117, the Buddha distinguishes between 2 kinds of right view. He calls one mundane, it affected by the asavas, the mental effluence, and the other supramundane, noble, without effluence, part of the path that leads beyond. Mundane right view is something you can understand intellectually. It has several components. The core is this: actions have consequences. What you do shapes what you become, and shapes the conditions you live in. There is such a thing as skillful and unskillful action, and the difference matters. There are those in the world who, through direct investigation, have come to know things you haven't. An awakening, to whatever degree, is possible for a human being. That's the mundane level. You can hold those propositions. You can live as if they were true. You don't need to have verified them directly. They're a working hypothesis that lets you start. Supramundane right view is a different animal. It isn't a belief set. It's the direct seeing of the 4 noble truths: suffering, its origin, its cessation, the path leading to its cessation. Not as ideas held in mind, but as things known by the same kind of immediate certainty with which you know your own hand is your own hand. Supramundane right view is, in the canonical description, effectively synonymous with awakening itself. It isn't a starting belief. It's a fruit. Now, I need to flag something here because scholarship matters. The sharp mundane/supramundane distinction, as it appears in MN 117, may reflect later systematic development in the canon. Some scholars, the Venerable Analayo is one, have noted that this particular framing has characteristics that suggest it was refined over time, possibly influenced by later Abhidhamma thought. That doesn't make it wrong. The distinction is useful, and it's been part of the tradition for a very long time. I just want you to know, it isn't necessarily the earliest layer of the teaching. What does this mean for you, sitting at home, watching this on a Tuesday evening? It means you don't need supramundane right view to begin. You couldn't produce it on demand if you wanted to. What you need is the mundane kind, Enough of the map to take the first step. Here's your Tuesday moment for this factor. 7:15 in the morning. You're at the kitchen counter with your first coffee of the day. You open your phone, and a headline hits. Something political, something worrying, something designed to get a reaction. You feel the reaction begin. A tightening in the chest, an imagined argument starting in your head, and in that moment, you remember something. You remember that this reaction right now is a live example of what the Buddha called the origin of suffering. The headline is the cause. The tightening is the effect. You saw the cause. The effect arose. You can see both at once. You can choose what you do next. You put the phone down. You drink the coffee. Right view, at the mundane level. Applied to a mental event. You didn't have to verify the Four Noble Truths supramundanely to do that. You just had to remember the map while the event was happening. That's sati in service of Paññā. The cluster circling around itself. Right intention, sama sankappa, is the second factor of this cluster. And in SN 45.8, the Buddha defines it with three components. SN 45.8. Nekkhamma, the intention of renunciation, often mistranslated as renouncing the world, but more accurately, letting go of what keeps you caught. Not a vow, an orientation. Abhyapada, the intention of non-ill will, the choice, made again and again, to not wish harm on whoever just cut you off in traffic, whoever disappointed you, whoever, in your imagination, deserves it. Avihimsa, the intention of harmlessness, broader than non-ill will, a settled disposition toward not adding more harm to a world that already has enough. Three intentions. Notice what they have in common. Each of them is the opposite of a reactive default. Grasping is the default. Renunciation is the intention. Ill will toward those who wrong you is the default. Non-ill will is the intention. Adding harm is the default. Often in small ways we don't notice. Harmlessness is the intention. Right intention is how the orientation of the heart aligns with the map in the head. Right view sees the territory. Right intention sets the direction. Together, they're the compass. And this is why right view and right intention were listed first. Not because you've mastered them, because without them, the other six factors don't know which way to go. Your Tuesday moment. 9:40 in the morning. You're in the kitchen. The coffee is mostly finished, and a dog starts barking in the neighbor's yard. Not unusual, but today something in you spikes. Tired, irritable, maybe poorly slept. A thought appears, fully formed. I should call animal control, or knock on the door and say something. The thought has momentum. 5 years ago, it might have gone all the way to action. But this morning, you notice the thought as it arises. You notice the heat underneath it. You notice that what actually wants to act right now isn't a cool reasoner. It's a tired part of you looking for somewhere to put the tiredness. And in noticing, the intention underneath the thought changes. Not because you suppressed it, because you saw it clearly enough that avihimsa, the intention toward not adding harm, could come forward as the actual guiding intention. The dog keeps barking. You refill the coffee. The moment passes. That's right intention operating in real time, not a monastic attainment. A householder's Tuesday. Now come back with me to Dhammadinna. She taught Visakha the three cluster structure, Sīla, Samādhi, Paññā, and she taught him which factors belong where. But she also taught something else that the Buddha confirmed. And this is where the path reveals its real shape. She taught that the three aggregates don't build on each other in order. Paññā, wisdom, begins at the start of the path as preliminary understanding and deepens through the walking. Sīla, virtue, begins at the start and becomes more natural over time, until it isn't a choice anymore, it's who you are. Samādhi, concentration, begins at the start with scattered attention gradually collected and matures in those conditions that allow it. Into jhāna, all three clusters are walked simultaneously. The map in your head guides the conduct of your body and speech, which steadies the mind, which refines the map, which refines the conduct, which steadies the mind further. That's a spiral. That's what Thanissaro Bhikkhu calls the holographic structure of the path. Each factor contains an echo of the whole, and the whole runs through each factor. In Majjhima Nikaya 117, M.N. 117, the canonical phrasing is that certain factors, specifically right view, right effort, and right mindfulness, run and circle around every other factor. Right view doesn't start the path and then step aside. It runs alongside every step. Right effort doesn't finish its job during Act 1. It keeps applying itself throughout speech, action, livelihood, and everything else. Right mindfulness doesn't belong only to the cushion. It's what lets you notice the dog, the daughter, the spider, the headline, the whole Tuesday, clearly enough that the other factors can even operate. 3 factors running and circling around the other 5, binding the whole thing into one motion. So here's where Act 3 lands. Right view and right intention. The factor that sees and the factor that chooses. They were listed first in the canonical order, not because you arrive with them, and not because you master them first. They were listed first because without them, the other 6 factors don't know which direction to walk. And the woman who taught this most clearly, in an exchange the Buddha himself endorsed word for word, was Dhammadinna, female arahant, former wife, teacher of her former husband. The Buddha said, "I would have answered you in the same way she did," which means the architecture of the path you've just been walked through is hers as much as his. 3 clusters, 8 factors, 1 practice. All of it running and circling around itself as it rises. One thing left. We need to come back to the spiral one more time and close this properly. Because after 13 clusters worth of factors, the most important question is the simplest one. Where, in all of this, are you? Synthesis, the return. Where in all of this are you? Let's come back to the spiral one last time. In Majjhima Nikaya 117, N 117, the Buddha describes how the 8 factors actually operate together. He says, and I'm giving you the canonical language carefully, that 3 particular factors run and circle around the others. Right view, right effort, right mindfulness. These 3 don't stay in their lane. They thread through every other factor. Right view sees what's happening. Right effort works with what's arising. Right mindfulness holds the teaching present while the moment unfolds. Wherever you are in the path, speaking, acting, earning, meditating, these 3 are either present or they're not. When they're present, the factor you're working on becomes part of the path. When they're not, whatever you're doing is just something you're doing. The Buddha then says something at the end of MN 117 that most people miss. He says right concentration, Samādhi, the 8th factor, the capstone, is any singleness of mind equipped with these 7 factors. Any singleness of mind, equipped with the others. Right. Concentration isn't a separate attainment tacked onto the end of a checklist. It's what happens when the other 7 factors come together, unified in one moment. The 8th factor is the integration of the other 7, which means the path isn't 8 things to master. It's one practice, unified concentration, being built from 7 supporting conditions. You're not assembling a kit, you're growing an organism. Think back to your Tuesday. 7:15 in the morning, the coffee and the headline. That was right view, seeing a mental event. With right mindfulness, holding the frame. With right effort, choosing not to feed the reaction. 9:40, the barking dog. Right intention, catching a harm-adding impulse. With right view, recognizing where the heat was actually coming from. With right mindfulness, noticing both. 11 o'clock, the phone call with your daughter. Right speech, 4 aspects of it. Happening in a 30-second choice, guided by right intention. Informed by right view about what would actually help her. 1:30, the spider. Right action, 3 abstentions. 1 small choice made with 60 seconds of attention. 2:45, the bills and the neighbor. Right livelihood, extended into the shape your life actually has now. Not a paycheck, but a flow of resources and time that you're positioned inside. 4 in the afternoon, the old memory surfacing. Right effort, 4 exertions applied to an arising grudge. 5:15, the walk. Right mindfulness, 3 of 4 satipathanas without sitting down. 8:30 in the evening, 20 minutes on the recliner. Right concentration, not jhāna, not yet. Maybe not in this lifetime, but the slope toward it. Collectedness cultivated, the ground preparing itself. 8 factors, 1 Tuesday. You were already walking the path. The only question was how many of the factors you were walking with. There's a discourse I want to read to you before we close. It's in Samyutta Nikaya 12, Sutta 65, SN 12.65. It's called the Nagara Sutta, sometimes translated the City Sutta, sometimes the Ancient Road. In it, the Buddha is describing how he himself found the Eightfold Path. He doesn't describe inventing it, he describes seeing something that was already there. I'm going to quote him directly. I have seen an ancient path, an ancient road, traveled by the rightly self-awakened ones of former times. Not invented, seen. The path was already there. The Buddha's claim, and it is a striking claim, worth sitting with, is that the shape of liberation from suffering is not a personal doctrine he created in his own century. It's a feature of how minds and lives actually work. Walk it skillfully, you move in a certain direction. Walk it unskillfully, you don't. He found it. Others had found it before him. Others would find it after. His job, and now yours, was to walk it. So, the Eightfold Path. It isn't a staircase you climb. It's an upward spiral. And I want to remind you one more time that spiral is Thanissaro Bhikkhu's image, not the Buddha's literal word. The Buddha's image, in MN 117, is 3 factors running and circling around 5. AN 10.121 gives us dawn and sunrise. 1 arising, not 8. SN 12.65 gives us a road already laid down, waiting to be walked. It isn't 8 things to master before you're ready. It's 1 practice, with 8 aspects. And if Dhammadinna was right, and the Buddha said she was, those 8 aspects sort into 3 clusters. Sīla, what you do. Samādhi, how you're present. Paññā, what you see and what you choose. All 3 walk simultaneously, each one refining the others. If what's reached you so far has mostly been the middle cluster, concentration, mindfulness, meditation, you have a third of a path in your hands. It's a real third. It helped you. It helps millions of people. It isn't wrong. It's a third. The other 2/3 are still available. They've been available the whole time. They're in suttas anyone can read. They're in the Tuesday you're already living. You don't have to go anywhere exotic to find them. You just have to notice that the way you spoke to your daughter this morning, and the choice you made in the grocery store parking lot, and the statements on your kitchen table, and the coffee, and the headline, and the dog, all of that was already part of what you were calling a spiritual practice. The practice isn't separate from the day. The eighth factor is the seven others unified. The whole path is one motion. You're walking it. The only question, the one question this video exists to put in front of you, is how fully. That's it. That's the video. Thank you for staying with me to the end.